Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
First of all, congratulations on the double contrabass, and also congratulations on receiving the state honor from your Netherlands, from the Netherlands.
How do you know? We follow you. Oh, the thing from last year.
Yeah.
That was like total surprise. Matthias was in the complot.
And what does this honor mean to you? Could you provide us with some information about this matter?
Well, it was. Flute making is a very lonely process. You're all by yourself, which I like. And there's nobody who. I organized my flute making in a way that I'm completely independent. There's nobody who tells me what to do. I'm not so good in people who tell me what to do, so I want to do my own thing. And over all these years, I made sea flutes for a long time. But always when there was like an alto sound somewhere, it did something to me. It opened up something, and I finally, over the years, it's a long process. I decided to specialize in alto flutes. So I stopped the production of sea flutes.
Mm-hmm.
And my colleagues said something like, "You're crazy because there's hardly music written for it." And I said, "Well, but as long as the instrument is not really like deserving to be a main instrument, it will always stay like that." So it was like a big challenge for me. So I started to make this big step to stop the sea flutes, which is a much bigger market than alto flutes. And I started to find my own way, working on the scale, the ergonomics. The aesthetic part comes much later. How to get the sound. There was always a sound in my head that I was trying to find. And after now maybe almost 40 years of 35 years of being in altos. I started 49 years ago with flute making. I think I'm getting closer to the sound that I'm looking for. I never looked for a low C flute, but like a real typical dark brown alto flute sound with the flexibility of a normal flute. Well, answering your question about what did the awards last year do, in the way I make instruments feels as swimming against the stream. So sometimes I start a project and there's something like, is the world waiting for this? Well, I don't care. I believe in it. And then finally, after so many different projects like the alto, closed hole alto, open hole alto, the Kingma system, which took many years to develop and design, bass flute, small bore, large bore, upright, B flute, Kingma system, partly open holes. Like it was, there are too many models now, but and then the contrabass, contraltos, subcontra, and now this one. It will not get bigger than this one. I promise.
You're
this
sure?
is no, I'm very sure because it's physically it's quite a thing to also carry it over. But yeah, to receive this prize or award last year, something like, it was not just something I believed in it myself, but it did something to the players, and not just to the players, but also to composers. And so when you're working all by yourself, you don't realize that moment that it is like a whole chain of for me it's wonderful that it's so well received and that people are so excited to do their things on my instruments. So it's a collaboration. And what I'm doing is would have been impossible without really watching and listening to players. I learned a lot from conventions. What happens when somebody picks up an instrument? What happens now? I'm pretty clear about how the design needs to be, in my opinion, on the alto flute. Very comfortable instrument. But if you look at the first ones, when somebody picks up an instrument and the players do, what's happening there? And the next one is doing the same. Then it's up to me to find a solution to make it comfortable. And it's a never-ending process.
Yeah. And you have created a brand that is rapidly growing and catching the attention of low flutists, special low flutists. How did the development process to the Kingma system begin, and how has it evolved over time? And could you provide us with some information about this process?
When I was still working with my uncle, making C flutes, and on the side also some alto flutes. There was a Dutch flute player, Jos Zwanenburg, who came over and asked for an open hole alto. And my uncle and I started to laugh. We had something like an open hole alto. But we made one, and we were both convinced that it would only be one instrument just for him. We never realized that this was like a real revolution. He showed it to composers. There were like, I think, 10 composers who started to write for it. It was mid-80. And then my uncle and I started to, as a joke, think about an open hole bass flute, which is like, because the spreading of your hands is like, and that's over the time, that's where the key-on-key Kingma system started. And when I finally figured that one out, there was no limit. I mean, there was no end. I could open this key, I could open that key. And if you see the first open hole bass flute, which is still in the hands of Robert Dick, he played on it for many years. That's compared to what I do now, that was like really primitive. And, but I wanted to get it to work, but it's not a very economical instrument. But it's also a never-ending development. I did it on the bass flutes. I made one full Kingma system contrabass that I will never do again. It was just too much. But then the idea started to also design it on the C flute. I didn't want to touch C flutes anymore. I was so, I felt so comfortable with being in the low flute world. But I did this idea how to do the Kingma system on the C flute, started cooking, and it was like a real obsession. We wanted to find a solution for it. And I was already really close friends with Bigford Brennan, the president of the Brennan Company, who died last year. We were really good friends. We shared the same language, the same craziness, the same passion. And I went over to him beginning 90. And it was, I mean, you have to trust somebody to share your ideas with. And I trusted him completely, and I shared all the ideas I had in my mind, and he immediately stepped into it. And we worked on it secretly on the background for a year, and then came out with the Brennan Kingma system, secret.
Okay, and during the development of the Kingma system, what were the biggest technical challenges you encountered, and how did you overcome them?
Are you talking about the Kingma system in general, or?
General.
Well, the great thing with the bass flute and the Kingma system is I had so much space because of the size. But making the same concept work on a C flute, that was quite a challenge. And it has to be, I always had the approach to use the boom system as a red line in the basic idea. I mean, I didn't want to design a Christmas tree with like lots of keys, and people had to start all over again with how to learn to play the flute. So for me it was a challenge as a highway. You're driving your car on the highway, that's the boom system, and on the side roads, when you replace your fingers just a little bit with small levers in a logical way, you can go into the side roads and do next to the boom system on the same instrument, do your things. Like what Matthias is doing, what Robert Dick is doing, like many more players. Still a normal boom system flute with like lots of extras.
And how is the development process of your flute shape? Do you collaborate with other flutists in this process?
Well, I'm working for over 30 years with Matthias Ziegler.
Yeah.
So he spends time in my shop several times a year for like a week. And we work on he comes with ideas and I try to find technical solutions for it. And sometimes, like the double contra was like an obsession for me for 10 years. And I ordered materials and I started working, and I got stuck in the design, so I had to just put it on the side. I kept thinking, and last year I thought, okay, if I want to do it in this life, I have to start. So it took me another half year last year. My whole summer, day and night, was blocked for the double contra, which was the first prototype that I brought over to the LFA. And Matthias came over several times during that process to see how it worked, how the scale was, how the fitting is with the hands. And I recently finished the second one, which is now here. But it is a never, and it's not a standard design. The next one will also be different.
Yeah. And I will ask in question, how do you come up with the idea for a new flute model? And is it based on demand, or you are thinking?
It's also
you realize maybe
it's flute. Thinking about flute making is my second nature. When I'm having breakfast, there's always something about maybe I can do this solution next time. It's always there. And as I said before, I learned a lot from watching players. The vertical bass, we just had a workshop there, started when I was watching people with having shoulder problems, or somebody with problems here. That always challenges me to see if I can find a solution to make things fit. And usually with orders like that, I work with the player to make things fit, to make things more challenging for them, more comfortable. Especially with the big flutes, I think it's so important that I feel responsible for trying to avoid muscle problems.
And when did your collaboration with Matthias Ziegler begin? And how is it the progress?
Well, mid-90. I was at the German flute convention in Frankfurt, and he walked in and he tried my open alto and he immediately ordered. I went to his concert in the evening. I never heard of him. And I was watching him and I thought, this is exactly the direction that I'm thinking about when I'm making the instrument. So in a way it was like immediately. So we did a lot of traveling together. We developed a lot together. His Hoover, this is I think the third model now. I mean, sometimes people order a Hoover and I just don't accept the order because the person needs to be in my shop to work together, and it requires a lot of time.
Okay, and I would like to ask a quick question about the new double contrabass flute. How was the development process of the double contrabass? How did you decide to create it, and how long it take to complete the process?
Well,
Very long
it's just
time.
what I said. I
Yeah.
decided to.
Yeah.
It was always a challenge to see if I could get that one to work, to play. If you go back to it, when I was making altos, people started to ask for bass flutes, and I said no for several years. And I thought, why not? Same with the contras. When I was working on basses, there were people who said, oh, what about the contras? No way, that's far too big. Well, finally I said yes to everything. This will be not the last project, but this will be the biggest one. And I'm sure that it will take some more models to. It's such a completely different instrument, and it's not just what Matthias also said. I have to really step back and see. It's a new process for him too. It's a new world to see how the instrument responds to him. So all the things he learned about flute playing it's completely different. And how long did it take? I mean, I just said I started 10 years ago to order the materials. And 9 years ago I had to put it on the side. Last year I worked day and night for half a year. And when that one worked, of course, the second one took me less time, but it's still like a couple of months.
And what are your new flute plans?
Well, I still have my hands full with this one for now. I would like to, and I came out with this new contrabass stand you've seen it, with the 3 legs, because I always felt very unsure about all the stands around, also my own stands. When I delivered one of my contrabasses, I always said something with packing the stand that I had by that time. It's my responsibility that an instrument is safe. So finally, I think this stand really works. It looks very simple, but it takes weeks to get it to work. And there will be some more. There will be some more plans.
I think it can be played during the stand. Can you explain about this? What's the?
Well, it's like I designed it's like 2 halves with 2 screws, and you put it onto your contrabass, and it can hold 3 legs. So you leave the thing on, and you twist 3 legs, and you adjust it for how high it needs to be for your playing. It's different for everybody. If you play it, you leave it on, and you can just use it as instead of the stick. The stick is also on it, but you just pull it towards you, you play it, and when you've got the break during rehearsal, you just put it back, and it will be there.
Is
and
it
it's
for
very
all brands?
I designed it also. It should also fit a Jupiter and a Dizao and a Puck, because the bore size is the same, but I have to check how it is with the mechanism.
And can you tell about the Low Flutes Festival planning to be made in Holland?
Oh. I want you all to be there.
We hope so.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. It's closer than this one.
Yes.
No, it's a plan, an idea that started with Matthias and me, together with somebody from the Adams Music Center. That's one of the biggest music stores in Holland now these days, in Europe. And we are good friends with the person who runs the flute department, Peter Swinkels. And we were in Germany like a couple of months ago at another flute festival, and we had dinner with the 3 of us. We were talking about why don't we organize something like this every other year in Holland? And Peter Swinkels is super experienced in how to organize a festival. But it's responsibility for Matthias and me to come up with people in the Low Flute world. And there's so much happening in the flute choirs now these days. So I think it could be interesting to have something which is also happening in Europe now.
And
Is there some certain date?
November 1, 2, 3.
It's clear. Ah, okay.
It will be announced with flyers and advertisements in the coming time.
and that's the whole of my
That's all.
questions.
Ah,
You're
Thank you
so
so
well
much.
prepared. It's beautiful.
Yes.
You did wonderful.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Super.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
I'm
a
so
lot for
excited.
sharing your time with
Yeah.
us.
Of course.
You,
So,
you are a genius. I hope you know that. Which is rare in this world.
that's for me, it's the only way.
Yeah.
I just cannot live my life in a different
Yeah.
way.